All right, here's the second part of chapter 13. Troy got everybody up on the rocks and pointed out the run that he and Freddie saw. Talked strategy, and then we all scrambled, slipping and sliding through the mossy rocks back to the boats. Shaking with the cold, I tugged at the cinches of my life jacket and tightened them up as much as I could. Star was struggling to do the same, but her fingers wouldn't cooperate. "Here, Star," I said, and helped her out. "Good luck," I whispered. "Let's go, Jessie," Troy called nervously. "I want you to ride as far forward as you can and hold that from the front and down." He was already in his seat and had the oars in his hands. Despite all my misgivings, I was stumbling around in the rocks, untying the bowline, hearing and seeing, feeling everything through a numbing fog. I couldn't have felt any less in focus. "Is this how it happens?" "Ready, Freddie?" Troy was saying. "Just a sec." Freddie was rigging a piece of rope from one side of the paddle raft underneath to the other side. "In case we flip," he was saying to the others, "don't get separated from the raft. Hang on to the chicken line, then pull yourself up to this rope and get into the bottom of the boat." "Should we rig one of those?" I asked Troy. "Forget it. We're losing time. We aren't going to flip, Jessie. Get in the boat, will you?" I did. I got in the boat, stowed the bowline, and looked back for Star. She gave me a little wave. "Hang on to those paddles no matter what," Freddie was telling them. "We can't afford to lose one." Troy was rowing out into the current. I moved forward in the boat and spread-eagled my weight against the very front. I tried to wedge my legs into the cracks where the tubes met the floor. Only my face protected above the levels of the tubes. There was no way I was going to get blown out of the boat by a big wave. The roar of the rapid intensified. The current picked up behind us. I heard Adam and Pug chanting, "Horn Creek, Horn Creek, Horn Creek." "Hang on, babe," Troy said under his breath, and I felt the boat dropping. Dropping, dropping. I couldn't see a thing with all the water pouring over me. The boat filled just that fast. As the boat bucked and pitched with the pounding, I wondered if I was going to float out of it. I struggled to plant my legs, but just as quickly as it all happened, it was over. And Troy was yelling, "Bail, bail!" I pitched 2 buckets of water out as Troy struggled in the turbulence to keep the boat off the dark cliff's walls. And then I glanced back to check on the paddle raft. "They made it!" I yelled. "Troy, they made it!" Oh yeah, of little fate," Troy chided. I bailed and bailed. "That was incredible, Troy. You were awesome." "They're all in the boat too, no swimmers." "What'd I tell you, Jessie? Now let's find a camp." If I'd never been so scared in my life, I'd certainly never been as relieved. We found our small camp on the left, a little beach shining in the gloom like a beacon, right where it was supposed to be. Thank goodness it was there. A couple of more minutes on the river and we should have to run by flashlights. It was quickly agreed there'd be no dinner that night. Breaking out our warm clothes and putting up tents would about do it for the day. Who cared if we're hungry and freezing? We were alive. After a while, we were all sitting around the gas lantern in a tight circle, warming our hands over the exhaust fumes and rehearsing our near-death experience. Everybody had a different slant on it, but Adam, bounding quickly back into form, provided the tour de force of the evening. "Great moments in history," he shouted and lifted to his feet, dancing among the rocks, his face coming in and out of the light cast by the lantern. He would announce a name and then strike a pose, as if he were a statue in the Wax Museum. David slaying Goliath with a little rock, Ulysses in the John, thinking up the Trojan horse trick, Caesar assassinated in the Senate, King Arthur pulling the sword from the stone, Leonardo opening his first book of crayons, Napoleon attempting to free his hand from his vest, Washington standing up in a boat, and ladies and gentlemen, the newly minted greatest historical moment of all time. Troy throws the mile-by-mile guide into the Colorado River. That was funny. Adam mimicked Troy's body language and that fateful moment, that uncanny perfection. He took the invisible guide in his hand, and with that Troy-like look of disdain, reenacted the infamous toss and froze halfway through the follow-through, to the howling cheers of his delighted audience. Troy was laughing along with the rest of us. Adam, I thought, you've made the tension go away. They've diffused the anger, and I can see what you're doing, what you're telling everybody. Lighten up. That's done is done. It's time to come back together. Our survival depends on it. Rita wasn't exactly on my wavelength. Brash as ever, she up and said, "Hey, Troy, what's it with the maps? You have a map phobia or something? I've never heard of that one." "What do you mean?" Troy said defensively. "Seriously, remember back on Storm King? You wouldn't look at the map?" True, I thought. Why is that? As the moon rose, a ghostly half moon obscured by the clouds, Troy and I sat by the river, holding hands and talking quietly. "I'm sorry," he said. "I guess I was stressed out." "So was I. We have to remember not to turn on each other. When the going gets tough, remember we care about each other, yes?" I squeaked his hand. "And you'll stick with me, okay?" That's all I ask. I said I would, but as I said goodnight and headed for my tent, I was more vaguely uncomfortable. I would try, but the events of this day would not be so easily forgotten, nor the feeling I experienced as he took the river guide out of my hands. It felt I was looking into the face of a stranger. Would I ever fully trust him again? I joined Star in the tent. She was putting away her tarot cards. In the light of the candle, her face looked ashen. Though she looked away, there was no disguising her distress. What is it, Star?" I whispered. "Did you see a ghost or what?" "Sort of," she whispered. "I can't tell you." "But Star, what's the matter? I really feel the worst is behind us, don't you?" She wasn't going to tell me what it was, but I begged and pleaded with her. It was spooky. Her eyes were going glassy on me. "Star," I whispered, "if you care about me at all." She struggled and then said, "I do, Jessie, if you promise to listen what I say and not take it wrong." "I'll tell you. I wouldn't tell anyone else in the world, but I'll tell you." She bit her lip and then turned on one of the cards face up. I gasped. It was the Grim Reaper astride a white horse. "Listen, Jessie. Don't say anything. You promised to listen. Death is not to be feared. Death is only a transition to another realm of existence. And all of us will die one day. You know that. Yes, I can accept that, as long as it's a ripe old age for both of us." An ethereal smile played at her lips, and her eyes there seemed to be looking through and past me. She was floating away. She'd never seemed as loosely tied down. I took her slender forearm by the wrist. "Star," I whispered, "what question did you ask?" "I asked if I was going to live through this trip." "Star, that's not a fair question." "Well, why not? It's self-fulfilling. It's like a death wish. You're the one who always says, if you think negatively, you'll produce a negative result, right?" "I didn't ask if I was going to die on this trip. I asked if I was going to live at the end. That's positive." "That's voodoo, Star. I'm sorry, but that's all it is. There's so much puddling in your head, and you can't think straight." Star bowed her head. She wasn't going to defend herself. "So now you have this course in your head, this death sentence. What are you going to do? Do not even try to hang on and get washed off the boat? Accidentally walk over the edge of a cliff? What?" She looked up brightly. "Jessie, you don't understand. I can do my best. I can be cheerful. I can try to be a better person than I ever have been before. I just have to be ready for a transition, that's all." I took her by both wrists and looked in her eyes. "Star, I tell you what. I'm keeping an eye on you. You aren't going anywhere without me. I want you to remember me. Jessie, whenever you hear the song of the Canyon Wren, that's going to be me singing just for you." "No way," I said. "A canyon wren is a canyon wren. That's what I believe. I want you to be you. I think you're really great, Star." She smiled painfully. "Thanks for the vote of confidence. I really appreciate it. Star, you're like a sister to me. the sister I never had. Same here, Jessie. I know these days, despite everything, they're the best of my life. My eyes filled with tears. It's okay, Jessie, don't feel sorry for me. Let's get some sleep. Star snuggled down into her sleeping bag and fell silent. In the morning, it was cloudier yet. A thicker layer had come in under the high clouds as we slept. I ate my breakfast ration and one packet of hot cereal. In the general silence, it was going to be a chilly day. And we were in for 3 big drops, as I remembered them from the river guide, before Troy threw them away. Granite Falls, Hermit, and Crystal. Maybe it wasn't a coincidence that the worst rapids were found in the most sinister-looking stretches of the canyon. I looked up and down the river at the black walls, and I remembered for a moment the friendly reds and whites of the cliffs in the upper canyon. I remembered the amber hue of the Freddy's Miracle Fountain, and the Sipapuni by the River of the Blue. Gone are the days, I thought. So long gone that our frolic in the sun seemed a distant memory. As I looked up and down the gorge at the tortured black rock, Star's premonition came to mind, and the chill ran through me. "A penny for your thoughts?" Troy said. "Join you for breakfast, such as it is?" "Sure," I said. I was pleased to have company, and his blue eyes were warm again, steady. His beard growing in, blonde peppered with red, accentuated the old charm that had returned to his smile. "Well, just wondering what the day will bring. I love river running, Jessie. I really love it. I love moving water. I love running this big water more than anything I can remember." "More than surfing?" He smiled broadly. "I can't knock surfing, but these waves, there's something else." "You haven't flipped yet. Haven't had any trouble at all. Where's some wood?" he asked with a laugh and lunged for a piece of driftwood, almost spilling his oatmeal. I'm knocking on it." I was laughing too, and then I was hearing something strange. Not having any idea at first what it might be, Pug and Adam were yelling and pointing. It was the unmistakable chop 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 of a helicopter. I looked up to see 2 of them buzzing down the gorge. We all stood silent for a moment as they flew past, only a couple of 100 feet above the water, right down the middle of the gorge. The sound ricocheting off the walls was unbelievably loud. We could see the helmeted men inside looking at us. "They're after us," Adam shouted. "The plot thickens." "Where's my rocket launcher?" Pug thundered. "Oh, for a couple of Stinger missiles." They don't have, of course. My, Troy said, standing next to me. "No place for them to land, is there? That's too bad." They buzzed up us 3 times, and then they left. "Helicopters," Rita called them. So that's it for chapter 13. So they finally found them again.